Welcome, everyone. Thank you for attending this evening's regular council meeting of the month of February 2022. It is held virtually once again. A mayor with whom I sit with on a regional committee mentioned earlier today that Prime Minister Legault is expected to announce tomorrow further liftings of COVID health restrictions, including some on public gatherings. It was his sense that council meetings would be able to be held in person again very soon. This opinion was shared by others at the table. On my end, I can tell you that I look forward to leaving the confines of this virtual bubble. While certainly convenient and comfortable, it is time to get back into circulation among people and places. Now, to the items on the agenda, past and present. As you may know, last Wednesday, some of you have attended the virtual public presentation pertaining to the changes proposed for the master plan to integrate environmental protection measures by law 525.3. The mandatory 15-day written consultation period closes today. As of last Friday, we had received 58 written entries. These have been shared with council, and I'm informed this evening that the number is now up to 94. The town will be going through each written submittal and will produce a report for council's consideration in days ahead as the final bylaw modifications are made ready for adoption at the special council meeting scheduled for February 24th at 7:30 p.m. A public notice will be issued online and posted outside Town Hall in compliance to the requirements set in the law. More details, including the planning program bylaw modifications and the recording of last week's virtual presentation, are available on the town's website under the tab Updating the Urban Plan. I'd like to thank Laura McCaffrey, Etienne Lavoie, Melissa Francis, Philip Toon, and others for their work in setting up the RCI's dashboard, Updating the Urban Planning Program, on the town's website and keeping it up to date. This tool has made this process more attainable and easier to access for many. Also, as suggested by people in attendance today, a paper flyer was sent out to all addresses providing a notice as to the proposed changes, the key dates, and process underway with coordinates on how to participate. As to the next step of this process, this evening, council will be tabling the draft interim control bylaw, bylaw 750, titled Establishing a Moratorium on Certain Urban Planning Operations. This second set of interim controls will eventually replace the first set adopted on December 6th. The draft of this bylaw and the map are available on the town's website. There will be a virtual information session pertaining to these second control measures. This will take place on Monday, February 21st at 7:30 p.m. While this public presentation is not mandatory, town directors and council feel it is important to continue to inform the public through every step of the process. As mentioned earlier, there will be a special meeting on February 24th, where two items will be on the agenda. The adoption of the planning program modifications, integrating environmental protection objectives and strategies that we presented last Wednesday, and also the adoption of the interim controls bylaw for which the draft is being submitted today. This interim controls bylaw will apply across a combined area of tiers 1 through 5 of the Echo to Urb 2020 report, while the town revises the specific urban planning tools or bylaws that implement the orientations and strategies of 525.3. Once the planning tools are revised and ready to stand on their own, this second RCI will be lifted. The present timeline is fall of 2022. And as special mentions, I'd like to extend a very special thank you to the Conservation Working Group members from the community and on council, and a very special thank you to Lorraine Caron, expert resident from St. Lazare, who brings great clarity to how the local measures can best work hand in hand with provincial and regional environmental frameworks. Lorraine's ability to share in layman's terms the foundations to environment protection versus conservation and bring it back to these essential has, in my view, kept the group's focus and recommendations on point and most pertinent to the immediate mandate at hand, to make recommendations to council during the RCI process on the priorities identified in the Echo to Urb report. So a special thank you goes to Donald Atwood, Tanya Burns, JJ Corker, Sylvie Ferron, David Calante, Brian Layler, Kevin Solerick. And I'd also like to thank the group president and council member, Mark Gray, whose composure, tenacity, and goodwill during these very tight timelines and complex process have been truly remarkable. Mark and the group never failed to meet a deadline. They kept a composed and scientific approach throughout. They met frequently as was necessary and collaborated via chat daily. A truly tight and committed group, many of us on council had the chance to see in full work, as their door was always left open for us to join, listen and learn and ask questions. This has been a truly enriching process for me, and I expect for others on council. We look forward to repeating the model on other topics to come. I also would like to recognize the balance and posterity brought to deliberations by the composed voice and perspective of the group's vice president and council member, Doug Smith. With regards to tonight's agenda, you will see that 2 out of the 3 projects that were presented to TPAC this month are past projects of mine. And as to avoid any appearance of a conflict of interest or a sense of undue influence, I will recuse myself from the table for items 3.1 to 3.5, during which Darren Legault, Pro Mayor, will preside the meeting, after which I will return to the table and take back presiding of the meeting. A similar procedure was applied during the preparatory meetings pertaining to these items, whereby I stepped out of the room while the discussions were taking place. Similarly, Peter Mate will recuse himself from items 3.1 and 3.2, as these pertain to a building he owns. The same procedure was applied. In his case, Mark Gray, as TPAC Vice President, will be giving a brief introduction to these items instead of Peter Mate, President of TPAC. Also, we will be modifying the agenda to remove item 3.7. It came to our attention late Friday that the date of residency of the nominated candidate was imminent or had taken place within the last weeks. We felt it more prudent to wait a month to clarify and confirm records. Also, I will not pretend that the nomination comes with full support of council at this time. We will need more time to review, discuss, and exchange as to the profile that is sought for this remaining seat on TPAC. We hope to bring a nomination to the agenda at the regular council meeting in March. On this, let's move on to the content of tonight's meeting. So, looking for the right document, which I think I just closed. There we go. There we go. So, as to item 1.2, adoption of the agenda, is there a motion to modify the agenda? Benoit Blais, you have to unmute yourself.
Don't you need to modify the adoption, l'ordre du jour?
Oui, et on le modifie comment? Que proposes-tu, Benoit?
No, I
okay.
I just thought you forgot about it.
No, I didn't. So I need someone to propose to remove item 3.7. So Doug Smith proposes to remove item 3.7. I need then a proposer and a seconder. So seconder is Benoit Blais. Ça te va, Melissa?
Oui.
Oui. Now we need to pass to a vote for the modified agenda. So all in favor of the modification to the agenda, hands up. It is unanimous, all hands are up. And now we need
proposeur et secondeur pour l'adoption.
Pour l'adoption, so now it's to adopt the modified agenda. We need a proposer and a seconder. So proposer Reed Thompson, seconder Mark Gray. And all in favor of the voting on the agenda. So it is unanimous. So at this point, we are moving to the confirmation of the minutes. So this is in section 2, item 2.1, confirmation of, did we want to do the French version of the modified agenda? Oui, pardon, Melissa, vas-y.
Le vote précédent, c'était pour adopter l'ordre du jour tel que modifié, c'est-à-dire avec le retrait de l'item 3.7 qui était la nomination d'un membre au CCU. Le vote qui prendra place, cette fois-ci, c'est pour adopter le procès-verbal de la séance précédente, donc du 10 janvier 2022.
Merci beaucoup, Melissa. So as Melissa just said, this item 2.1 is for the confirmation of the minutes of the last meeting, which took place on January 10th. So I need a mover and a seconder for the approval of these minutes. It is moved by Benoit and seconded by Peter Mate, that the minutes held on January 10th are approved. So I need a vote. All in favor? All hands are up. So it is carried unanimously. Now we will open the first question period. I remind you to try and keep it brief and to keep your follow-up questions to one. We presently have 33 people in attendance, and we have received no written questions. So these are questions from the floor. Please raise your hands and we will take you in order of people's hands. I do not see any raised hands. Philip, do you? No. I take it that there are no questions. All right. So item 3, urban planning. I will ask Peter Mate, the District 3 Councillor and President of TPAC, to give us a brief report on this month's meeting and to introduce the resolutions that result from TPAC's review process, other, of course, than items 3.1 and 3.2, for which he'll recuse himself. So go ahead, Peter.
Okay, so we had 2 signs on the National Bank building where, as Chloe said, I'll be recusing myself. This is for Remax. We also had 3 items for La Maison Rose at 471 Main. One was a modification to the approved plan, one was a terrace or patio, and one was a sign on a post. And we had one final item, which was an addition at 66 McNaughton. So I'll recuse myself and let Mark take it away.
And I will recuse myself also from items 3.1 through 3.5 and leave the presiding of the meeting to Darren Legault. Go ahead.
Mark, go ahead with 3.1. I guess you'll do it in English. Melissa will do it in French. So take away 3.1, please.
All right, thank you, Darren. So 3.1, it's 468, 470 Main, SPAPE, sign on a wall. Brief description, it's like a Royal Lepage simple balloon stuck to the brick wall of the building adjacent to the main door on the building. Whereas the certificate of authorization request was received for a sign on the wall on lot 1833249, 468, 470 Main, whereas bylaw number 571 concerning site planning and architectural integration program SPAPE indicates objectives and criteria to fulfill for this type of permit application. Whereas that the Town Planning Advisory Committee studied the request during the meeting held on January 12th, 2022, whereas the Town Planning Advisory Committee unanimous recommendation to refuse the SPAPE in support of the certificates of authorization request. Whereas the objective to properly locate the signage while ensuring its harmonious integration with buildings is not respected because the criterion aiming to prioritize signage that respects the architectural characteristics of the building and installation locations is not fulfilled, that it does not obstruct the architecture's decorative components is not fulfilled, and whereas the criteria aiming to prioritize materials, shapes, colors that harmonize with building facades along with their volume and architecture is not fulfilled, and the interharmony of signage installed on buildings, dimensions, materials, colors, etc. is not fulfilled. So it is moved by
we'll go for the French. Sorry, Mark. We'll
go for
the French version, and I'll call it to a vote after.
Okay, very good.
Thank you for the introduction.
Cette résolution vise la bâtisse au 468-470 Main. C'est une demande pour une enseigne directement sur le bâtiment. À cette demande s'applique le règlement 571 sur les plans d'implantation et d'intégration architecturale, donc les PIIA. Le comité consultatif a traité le dossier à sa rencontre du 12 janvier dernier et la recommandation était unanime à l'effet de refuser la demande telle que présentée. Et considérant que l'objectif d'intégrer l'enseigne harmonieusement n'était pas respecté, que le critère de privilégier une enseigne qui respecte les caractéristiques architecturales du bâtiment et du lieu n'est pas rempli, Également, le critère visant à privilégier une enseigne qui n'obstrue pas les éléments du décor architectural n'est pas rempli, de même que celui de préserver les matériaux, une forme et des couleurs qui s'harmonisent avec la façade, et également des enseignes qui s'harmonisent entre elles en termes de dimensions, matériaux et couleurs. Donc, la résolution vise à refuser la demande de certificat d'autorisation pour l'enseigne murale.
For clarification purposes, this is a refusal. So do I have a mover for this refusal? Reed Thompson. Do I have a seconder? Mark Gray. All those in favor of a refusal, rejection of this request? It is unanimous by those that can vote, including myself, because I think I have to vote, even though I am chairing the meeting. So 3.1 is unanimous in rejection. Again, as stipulated earlier, please ensure that the record shows that the Mayor Hutchison and Councillor Mate have recused themselves from Article 3.1 of the agenda tonight. 3.2, Mr. Gray, Councillor Gray, take it away.
All right. 3.2, thank you. 46A 470 Main. So it's the same building, SPAPE sign on structure. So this is the post outside in front of the building that holds the main larger Royal LePage sign. And whereas the certificate of authorization was received for a sign on the structure of lot 1833249er at the same address, whereas bylaw number 571 concerning site planning and architectural integration program, SPAPE indicates objective and criteria to fulfill for this type of permit application, whereas the Town Planning Advisory Committee studied the request during the meeting held on January 12th, 2022, whereas the Town Planning Advisory Committee's unanimous recommendation to approve the SPAPE in support of the certificate of authorization request.
Thank you, Melissa.
Il s'agit d'une demande de certificat d'autorisation pour le 468-470 Main, encore une fois, mais pour une enseigne sur structure. Le règlement 571 sur les plans d'implantation et d'intégration architecturale s'y applique. Et le dossier a été traité par le comité consultatif d'urbanisme le 12 janvier dernier, qui a fait une recommandation unanime à l'effet d'approuver la demande de certificat. Donc, le vote est à l'effet de l'approuver.
Do I have a proposer for the acceptance of Article 3.2 in tonight's agenda? Mr. Blais, seconder. Mr. Smith. All those in favor, please say yay, raise your hand. The approval is unanimous. Once again, please let the record show that Mayor Hutchison and Councillor Mate have recused themselves from Article 3.2 of tonight's agenda. We will reintroduce Councillor Mate for Article 3.3, and I will ask Councillor Mate to take it away.
All right, I'm back. Item 3.3, 471 Main. So the first item is the SPAPE modification to the approved SPAPE. So permit request for an addition and a major renovation to the main building for 471 was approved by Town Council on April 6th, 2021. The applicants modified the approved SPAPE requiring a new approval. TPAC reviewed the request on January 12th, 2022. TPAC's unanimous recommendation was to refuse the permit request.
Thank you, Councillor Mate. Maître Legault.
Oui. Cet item vise le 471 Main qui avait, le 6 avril 2021, obtenu un permis pour un agrandissement, mais qui a apporté des modifications. Donc, une nouvelle approbation s'avère nécessaire. Donc, le CCU a traité ce dossier le 12 janvier dernier et sa recommandation est unanime à l'effet de refuser le PIA relatif à la demande de permis. Cette résolution-ci vise à refuser le PIA car l'objectif de préserver l'architecture des bâtiments puis le caractère champêtre des espaces extérieurs le long de la rue Main n'est pas respecté et que les matériaux de revêtement extérieur qui cadrent bien avec l'architectural, en fait, ne cadrent pas bien avec l'architecture des bâtiments et leur nombre devrait être réduit au minimum. C'est un critère qui n'est pas rempli.
Merci beaucoup. So for a point of clarification, this is for refusal of the permit request in the SPAPE. So do I have a proposer for the rejection of this request? Councillor Reed Thompson. Do I have a seconder for the rejection? Benoit Blais, Councillor Blais. All those in favor of the refusal of this request? It appears unanimous. Thank you very much. And once again, please let the record show that Mayor Hutchison had recused herself from 3.3. 3.4, Councillor Mate.
So 3.4 is the same building, 471 Main. It's a major renovation for a permit request for a deck or a terrace. So TPAC reviewed the request on January 12th, 2022, and TPAC's recommendation by majority was to refuse the permit request. Part of the objectives to preserve the front yard of buildings was not respected, but the front yard remains a landscaped area excluding constructions is not fulfilled. Criterion aiming to preserve the existing trees is not fulfilled. And that's it in a nutshell.
Thank you, Councillor Mate. Maître Legault.
Cette résolution vise encore une fois le 471 Main pour des travaux de rénovation majeure, donc spécifiquement pour la terrasse. Le CCU a révisé le dossier le mois dernier et recommande à la majorité de refuser la demande de permis. Et les motifs qui sont invoqués, c'est que certains critères ne sont pas remplis, dont celui de respecter les caractéristiques propres à l'architecture du bâtiment, la forme du toit, le matériau de revêtement extérieur, etc., de préserver la cour avant et de préserver les arbres ne sont pas respectés. Donc, la résolution vise à refuser la demande de permis.
Merci. So, point of clarification, this is a vote for a refusal to the SPAPE request, the permit request. Do I have a proposer for the refusal? Mark Gray, seconder. Councillor Blais. All those in favor of the refusal of Article 3.4 of tonight's agenda? It is unanimous. Once again, please let the record show that Mayor Hutchison has recused herself from Article 3.4. 3.5, Councillor Mate, please take it away.
So 3.5, the last item for this building, 471 Main, is a sign on a structure. TPAC reviewed the request on January 12th, 2022. The town TPAC was unanimous in the recommendation to approve the permit request. On the condition or the recommendation that the word restaurant be removed from the sign and that the word hotel be centered above the words Maison Rose.
Maître Legault.
Cet item vise encore une fois le 461 Main. C'est une demande de permis pour une enseigne sur structure. Le CCU a révisé le dossier et sa recommandation est unanime à l'effet d'approuver la demande, mais suggère la condition suivante, c'est-à-dire de retirer le mot restaurant de l'enseigne et que le terme hôtel soit centré au-dessus de la mention Maison Rose. Donc, le Conseil votera avec cette recommandation conditionnelle.
Thank you very much. So we have, just point of clarification, we are voting for approval, and council in our deliberations and caucus have made the removal of the word restaurant from the sign as a condition. We have chosen to adopt the recommendation from TPAC and CCU. So the clarification is this is to approve the request with the condition that the word restaurant be removed from the sign and the word hotel be centered above the words Maison Rose. Do I have a proposer for this request, Article 3.5 of tonight's agenda? Councillor Gray, do I have a seconder? Councillor Smith, all those in favor of approving this with the conditions stated, please raise your hand. Thank you very much, it's unanimous. And once again, for the last time, please let the record show that Mayor Hutchison has recused herself from Article 3.5 of tonight's agenda, and I believe let the record show that she has reintroduced herself into tonight's meeting, and I can go back on mute.
Thank you, Darren. You do this so well. I think you should do it all the time. All right, so moving on to item 3.6 at 66 McNaughton. This is a project for Peter to present. Here we go.
So item 3.6, 66 McNaughton is permit request for an addition. TPAC reviewed the request at the January 12th, 2022 meeting. TPAC's unanimous recommendation was to approve. Council thought that the objective to preserve architectural character of building is not respected. The roof shape, the exterior cladding material, the facade composition, the architectural components is not fulfilled.
Mélissa, en français.
Cette résolution vise le 66 McNaughton, qui est une demande de permis pour un agrandissement. Suite à la révision du dossier, le CCU a fait la recommandation unanime d'approuver la demande. Toutefois, le Conseil est d'avis que l'objectif de préserver son caractère architectural n'est pas tout à fait respecté parce que le critère de respect des caractéristiques architecturales, soit la forme du toit, matériaux, composition des façades, n'est pas rempli. Donc, cette résolution-ci vise à refuser la demande de permis.
Merci beaucoup. I need a mover for this resolution. So Benoit Blais, and a seconder is Doug. So as clarification, this is a resolution to refuse the SPAPE request. And now we will pass to a vote on who supports this resolution. So hands up. So I see 4 hands. Do we want to go through naming who's voting for or against? Or are we happy with just showing that 4 in support of the refusal and 2 are against the refusal of this resolution?
I believe if
Okay
somebody
with that.
wants a recorded vote, they would have to request it.
Thank you. Si vous voulez, if you want to be named on the minutes, you would have to ask for a recorded vote, and then we go one by one and identify who's voting for and who's not.
Yeah,
It's
I would
okay.
say, I think it's okay to go for a recorded vote and be
All right.
named in this
So I'll
case.
start with District 1, Douglas Smith. Do you vote in favor of the refusal?
I vote in favor of the refusal, correct.
Correct. Benoit Blais, District 2, favor?
Same thing.
So in favor of the refusal.
Yes.
Peter Mate, do you vote in favor of the refusal? No.
No.
Reed Thompson, in favor of the refusal?
Yes, I'm in favor of the refusal.
Okay. Mark Gray, are you in favor of the refusal?
No, I'm not in favor.
And Darren Legault, are you in favor of the refusal?
I am in favor of the refusal.
All right. Donc, the count is 4 that are for the refusal and 2 that are against the refusal. All right. Item 3.7 was removed from the agenda. So we're moving on to item 3.8, the tabling of the monthly reports for permits issued in December. Mélissa, en français.
Oui, le Conseil procède au dépôt du rapport mensuel des permis émis en décembre 2021.
So this is just a report that is here for information and is available through access to information. Now on to part 4 of the meeting. Item 4.1, the approval of disbursements for the month of January. We do this every month, where council examines the disbursements that are made and to be made for the accounts payable for the month as of January 26th. These disbursements are as follows. So in terms of checks, the amount is $872,854.31. Canceled checks, there are none. Direct debit is $309,966.10. In terms of canceled direct debit, it is for a negative $9,316.09 for a subtotal of $1,173,504.32. For payroll number 1 this month in January, it was $117,079.65. For payroll number 2 was $109,461.66. For the total of accounts paid in January, it is $1,400,045.63. Mélissa, en français.
4.1, l'approbation des paiements pour le mois de janvier 2022. Donc, le Conseil a examiné les dépenses effectuées en date du 26 janvier et les paiements se présentent comme suit. Donc, pour chèque, 872 854,31. Chèque annulé, aucun. Débit direct, 309 966,10. Débit direct annulé, 9 316,9. Pour un sous-total des paiements à 1 173 504,32. La paye numéro 1, 117 079,65 et la paye numéro 2, 109 461,66 pour un grand total des comptes payés 1 400 045,63.
Merci, Melissa. I need a mover and a seconder for the approval of these accounts payable. So it is moved by Benoit Blais and seconded by Peter Mate. And we will pass to a vote. All in favor of the approval of these disbursements. All hands are up. C'est voté à l'unanimité. On to item 4.2, financing the loan bylaws 732 and 735. These are the bylaws for the capital expenditures of the road work that was done last year on Bellevue and Main. The amounts for the bylaws are, in one case, the total will be less than what was anticipated, and the term, so the length on which the bylaw is financed, is reduced. So in terms of Bellevue, it is reduced from 15 years to 10 years. In the case of Maine, it is the amount that it is reduced. So whereas the town of Hudson requested by way of electronic financial information systems for the sale of issuance of bonds in the amount of $5,085,000, dated February 17th, went out to public tender, and there were 4 complying bids. These bids, I suppose we will read them. So the first bid was Marchés Mondiaux CIBC. Do I read for each year, Melissa? No?
Non, vous pouvez mentionner le coût.
Le coût total.
Ouais.
Le coût réel, le prix. OK, le prix total en bas? Oui. C'est assez compliqué. OK, so le prix est de 98 et ça va être compliqué. Le coût réel, pardon?
les chiffres sont bizarrement inscrits.
Oui.
On peut quand même juste indiquer qui a fait des propositions, qui est le gagnant, qui est dans ce cas-ci.
Et le pourcentage, et je peux dire le pourcentage, ça
on peut donner le coût réel en pourcentage, puis n'importe qui veut les détails, ils ont juste à le demander. On va l'envoyer.
Bon. So as we've mentioned, there were 5 bids. Marchés Mondiaux CIBC for the years 2023 through 2027. For le coût réel in terms of percentages, 2.70209. The second bid was Valeurs Mobilières Desjardins for the same period. Coût réel is of 2.73500%. The third bid was Financière Banque Nationale Inc. for the same period, a coût réel of 2.73899%. Bid number 4 was Valeurs Mobilières Banque Laurentienne Inc. for the same period. The coût réel is of 2.75738%. And bid number 5 is Maquis Research Capital Corporation, au coût réel de 2.76430%. And as Mr. Toon mentioned, any details that you may be interested in seeing is available, will be available through the resolution and through the meeting minutes that will be posted once approved next month. So, Mélissa, je suis désolée, je te laisse le temps en français.
Il n'y a aucun problème. L'item 4.2 vise le financement des règlements d'emprunt 732-2020 et 735-2020. Donc, c'est les règlements d'emprunt qui visent la réfection de la rue Maine et Bellevue. Donc, la Ville a demandé des soumissions pour obtenir le financement, l'émission des obligations, puis c'est au montant de 5 085 000. Il y a eu 5 soumissionnaires, donc Marchés mondiaux CIBC Inc. pour 5 ans propose un coût réel à 2,70209 %. Valeur mobilière des jardins propose un coût réel de 2,73500. Financière Banque nationale, le coût réel proposé est de 2,73899. Valeur mobilière Banque Laurentienne, un coût réel de 2,75733 et Mackey Research Capital Corporation, coût réel 2,76430. Donc, comme Marchés mondiaux CIBC est la plus avantageuse, c'est d'émettre l'émission d'obligations envers cette firme.
So as mentioned by Melissa Legault, Marchés mondiaux CIBC was the most advantageous for this period of 5 years. And so the offer from the CIBC was deemed to be the most beneficial and is the one at the point of this resolution. So I need a mover and a seconder to approve this resolution. So Darren is moving, seconded by Benoit Blais, to proceed with this issuance of bonds. I need a vote on this resolution. And all in favor? Thank you. There's 6 up. It is unanimous. Sorry for that bit of a complicated banking resolution. Maybe I should ask Benoit next time to be the one to present it. It'll be easier. All right.
So Mayor Hutchison, just a point of clarification, it might be worth noting that this is a highly regulated process that's brokered to the province, the appropriate branch of the province. So
I appreciate that. Thank you, Darren. All right, item 4.3, financing the loan bylaws of 732 and 735. So these are the 2 I believe that we just saw, if I'm correct. Yes, and these, whereas the following bylaws need to be adjusted. So specifically for the term bond for February 17th in the amount of $5,085,000. The amount for the règlement d'emprunt, so for the loan bylaw 732, the amount will be of $2,205,000. And for the loan bylaw 735, the amount will be $2,880,000. So whereas it is necessary to modify these bylaws accordingly, and where the town wishes to issue for a shorter term than the original set out in the aforementioned bylaws. Again, further details will be available through the resolution. I need a mover and a seconder. So Peter Mate is moving, seconded by Reid Thompson on the approval of these modifications to the loan bylaws.
En français.
I beg your pardon?
En français.
En français, merci Mélissa.
Cet item 4.3 vise encore une fois le financement des règlements d'emprunt 732, 735. Donc, c'est relié à la résolution précédente. Donc, en lien avec l'émission d'obligations qu'on vient de faire. C'est une résolution qui suit toujours. Donc, ça vise les règlements d'emprunt que j'ai mentionnés. Donc, 732 pour un montant de 2 205 000 et 735 pour 2 885 000. Puis c'est ça, considérant que la Ville souhaite émettre pour un terme plus court que celui fixé au règlement, donc le financement est pour 5 ans. La résolution là, autorise le transfert de fonds définis, les termes de la caisse de dépôt. Bref, pour tous les détails, ce sera précisé à la résolution comme mentionné par Madame la mairesse.
Merci beaucoup. So all in support of these revisions to the loan bylaws, I need a vote. So I see 6 hands up. It is unanimous. All right, so for part number 5 for town clerk, item 5.1, signing of a work sharing agreement with the Metropolitan Transportation Network, so EXO. This is with in relations to the bus shelters and clarifying the agreements. There was no agreement at this time in terms of responsibilities for each parties regarding the maintenance and the replacement of the shelters. It is my understanding that EXO has been doing this, so uniformizing their process throughout the CMM. And we are just another town basically going through the process and adjusting the agreement and making sure that it complies to our ability and our needs. So all this to say, I will need a mover and a seconder for this.
Do you want me to go?
Oui, oui, bien sûr, désolé.
L'item 5.1 vise la signature d'une entente concernant le partage des tâches avec le réseau de transport métropolitain, pardon. Donc, EXO est déjà propriétaire des abribus qui se situent sur le territoire de la ville, bien qu'il n'y ait aucune entente actuelle qui définisse les responsabilités de chacun. C'est la volonté de EXO de le faire. Donc, un projet d'entente nous a été soumis, puis il s'agit d'autoriser la signature de ce projet d'entente-là.
Un projet d'entente, est-ce que ça veut dire qu'on va avoir une nouvelle entente finale ou
c'est juste qu'eux ont soumis des termes d'une entente pour savoir si ça nous convenait. Dès qu'on a la résolution, l'entente sera signée.
Et transmise à EXO. Okay. So I need a mover and a seconder. Have we done that part?
No.
No? Okay. A mover and a seconder. So Peter Mate and Benoit Blais. For this agreement with regards to the bus shelters. All in favor of the agreement? I see 6 hands up. It is passed unanimously. Thank you. So item 5.2, officiant célébrant for marriage of or civil unions. This is for the application for designation. Whereas there has been a request that was made to find out if there was someone on council pertaining, specifically me, available to perform a marriage. So in preparation of this and for the course of the 4 years, it's standard practice. I suppose we did it last term where in my case, or in this case, it'll be me that will be nominated to perform the celebration. It comes with a clear set of forms and processes to be followed. It is, again, something that is highly framed by the government, and I won't get to ad lib, I promise. So I need a mover and a seconder to support this. I see Darren's hand up and Reed's hand as well. So sorry, moved by Darren and seconded by Reed.
And en français before the vote.
Oui, merci. Décidément.
C'est un item visant à désigner un célébrant pour les mariages et les unions civiles, considérant que les maires et les membres du Conseil peuvent être désignés comme célébrants compétents pour célébrer un mariage sur le territoire de la ville. Donc, c'est Madame la mairesse qui sera désignée au terme du vote.
Merci beaucoup. So all in favor of this application for designation? I see 6 hands up. Thank you. So it is passed unanimously.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Are you planning on being remarried, Darren? Could do a second.
Not in the plans, but you never know.
All right. We are moving then to item 5.3, tabling of the preliminary report that was produced by the Ad Hoc Conservation Working Group on conservation. And I have asked Mark to give us a brief intro as to the work and these great results. So thank you, Mark.
Okay, so I'll just start by thanking Doug for being my sounding board, going through this process, as Chloe mentioned before. It was pretty intense with lots of meetings and lots of stuff to go over. And thank the counselors who were a lot more involved than I anticipated, coming to meetings, Chloe especially as well, coming to the meetings and just being there to offer support and great input, but allowing the process to, to do what it's supposed to do. And of course, the Conservation Working Group, all the people that Chloe mentioned, what a great group of professionals to be able to go over so much information and what come out with what I think is a great sort of cornerstone for conservation, I suppose I could call it. I'll give you a brief sort of summary of what the recommendations are, and they are recommendations at this point until council approves whatever is going to be approved in the future. But these are the recommendations that came from the Conservation Working Group, and it should be available on the town website if it's not there already, but I'm sure that could be confirmed afterwards. So there's 3 focus areas: wetlands, forests, connectivity. So with wetlands, the recommendation is to just prohibit any backfilling or any type of disturbance at all within wetlands, and also reconnecting wetlands where they have been fragmented. So the rehabilitation of wetlands. The next focus area of forests is honoring the restrictions for cutting within the DCFM, which is the Bois et Corridor Forestier Métropolitain. This is mostly outside the urban perimeter, and then inside, protecting as much wooded forested lands inside the urban perimeter. And then the next one is connectivity. So blue-green corridors. So the wetland corridors goal is 30 meters on either side of wetlands for certain activities, and then enforcing more strongly the 10-meter areas that are already protected along the blue corridors, and then a 60-meter where we can forest corridor. And the point with the connectivity is really connecting, if you can imagine, the West End Forest, the Como Forest, and the Vivery Creek, the Gary Circle Trail, and Black Creek coming all the way down as it enters and comes through the town, and then into Jack Layton Park, Sandy Beach, and into the Ottawa River. There are other corridors in Hudson, but that really is kind of the core backbone that the group aims to protect. So that's you can see more details, of course, on the sheet that'll be published on the town website. So those are the Coles notes.
Great. Thank you so much. Really incredible work, incredible group, and we look forward to continuing. Mélissa, juste brièvement, peut-être?
Je vais vous référer au document qui sera mis sur le site web de la Ville, mais à l'item 5.3, c'était le dépôt du rapport préliminaire du comité de travail chargé à la conservation qui s'est rencontré au courant du mois dernier.
D'accord. Merci beaucoup. So moving on to part 6 on human resources, item 6.1. This is for the probation period of employee 960 for the position of public works foreman, where this person, there was a probation period corresponding to 6 months from the date of appointment, which I believe was in August, and we've come to the end of that period. And that the town had the opportunity to extend it, but at this point has no doubt of the quality of the work that was provided by this managerial employee in question. So the resolution that is in front of council is to confirm that the period of the employee is over as of January 26th, and to confirm him in his position of foreman at Public Works as of January 27th. So, en français.
6.1 vise la fin de probation pour le mois de février. Donc, c'est l'employé 960 au poste de contremaître qui a été embauché au mois d'août dernier. Donc, sa période de probation de 6 mois vient à échéance et la Ville ne juge pas bon de renouveler cette période de probation-là, car n'entretient aucun doute quant à la qualité de la prestation de travail de l'employé cadre en question. Donc, la résolution vise vise à confirmer que la période de probation s'est terminée en date du 26 janvier et de le confirmer dans son poste dès le 27 janvier.
Merci beaucoup. So I need a mover and a seconder for this resolution. Thank you. Douglas Smith is moving, seconded by, sorry, I saw Darren's hand. Yes, Darren as seconder. So this is, again, just to confirm this position of the foreman. And we should pass to a vote. All in favor of this resolution? All hands are up. Philip, you moved on my screen. You're disturbing my balance. I used to have 6, now I have 4 and 2. All right, alors ça a été voté à l'unanimité. Item 6.2, creation of the function 210, the assistant of the public works foreman. So this is in continuation of a resolution that was adopted in September, a pilot project for an assistant foreman for public works, where the project had a trial period of 6 months to validate the needs for this service. The position has enabled the accomplishment of several projects, and it is felt that it is important to continue with this position. So this resolution is to create a permanent full-time unionized position for an assistant foreman and to confirm the function 210 assistant foreman to the employee 576 as of July 26, 2021. So en français.
Item 6.2, c'est la création de la fonction 210, donc de contremaître adjoint. Ça fait suite à un projet pilote qui a débuté en septembre pour cette nouvelle position, donc aux travaux publics. Ça avait une période d'essai de 6 mois et la Ville croit bon de continuer avec ça parce que le besoin le requiert. Donc, la résolution vise à créer la fonction puis à confirmer l'employé 576 dans cette fonction, dans ce poste.
Merci beaucoup. It is moved by Darren Legault and seconded by Mark Correa for then the creation of this function and the confirmation of this employee. And if we pass to a vote, all in favor, I see 6 hands are up. C'est passé à l'unanimité.
Congratulations and thanks to the 2 employees, Mayor Hutchison.
Thank you, Darren. Great for you to mention this. I believe that we're very, very pleased with this process. Donc, we're passing to section 7 on recreation, culture, and tourism, where there's nothing. And then the next section, public works, number 8. So item 8.1, awarding of contract for the geotechnical study of Lakeview Street. Whereas there was a resolution in July that was adopted granting a plan and specifications contract for the Lakeview Street redevelopment. And whereas presently a geotechnical study is necessary to complete the plans and specifications. 2 companies have submitted their offer of services for this study. One is ABS Group at the estimate of $29,840. And the second company is JS Laboratory for $28,975. And typically these contracts are awarded to the lowest bidder. So Laboratoire GS Inc. for the geotechnical study of Lakeview Road to prepare the plans and specifications necessary. So this is, for the geotechnical study. For the amount then of $28,975, and that this expense be charged to an item in the budget that is specifically assigned to this project. Mélissa, en français.
Oui, donc au point 8.1, c'est l'octroi de contrat pour une étude géotechnique pour la rue Lakeview. Donc, il y a déjà le contrat qui a été octroyé pour l'élaboration des plans et devis pour le réaménagement de la rue. Et maintenant, une étude géotechnique s'avère nécessaire pour compléter les plans en question. Donc, pour l'étude géotechnique, nous avons reçu 2 offres de services de 2 entreprises, donc groupe ABS pour 29 840 $ ou encore Laboratoire GS à 28 995. Donc, Laboratoire GS étant le plus bas soumissionnaire, le contrat lui est octroyé pour le montant de 28 975 avant taxe.
So I need a mover and a seconder for this resolution. Darren Legault moves, and it is seconded by Reed Thompson to award the contract for the geotechnical study to Laboratoire GS for that amount. And I need a vote for the resolution. All in favor, thank you. All hands are up. C'est passé à l'unanimité. Item 8.2, renewal of the snow removal contract. So considering that in June of 2019, a resolution was granting the snow removal contract to Les Entreprises S. Besner Inc. Following a public tender that took place in 2019, and that there was an option to extend the contract to up to 2 additional years. So this resolution is to extend this snow contract and to basically apply the possibility then to add these 2 additional periods for a total of 2 years. And this is in accordance with the public tender documents of 2019. The renewal of the contract is based on the current submitted price and indexed from the inflation rate produced by Statistics Canada from September 1st of 2022, September 1st, 2020 until August 31st of 2021, representing an increase of 1.54% to the contract. The current contract is $645,100 per year with the modifications to Main Road included. The contract will cost approximately $10,000 more per year due to the inflation. So I will need a mover and a second. En
Do you want me
français?
to go?
Oui,
Yeah.
bien sûr.
À l'item 8.2, il s'agit du renouvellement du contrat de déneigement. Donc, notre contrat actuel a été octroyé en 2019 à Entreprise S. Besner. Et l'appel d'offres public prévoyait une option afin de prolonger le contrat pour 2 années supplémentaires. Donc, la résolution est à cet effet, donc d'utiliser 2 périodes additionnelles pour un total de 2 ans. Et les détails monétaires, c'est que le prix est basé sur le contrat actuel et indexé à partir du taux d'inflation produit par Statistique Canada du 1er septembre 2020 au 31 août 2021, ce qui représente 1,54% d'augmentation du contrat actuel. Donc, considérant que le contrat actuel est de 645 100 $ par année, ça fait qu'il y aura une augmentation approximative de 10 000 $ par année.
Merci, Melissa. So I need a mover and a seconder. It is moved by Darren Legault, seconded by Peter Mate. Sorry, Benoit, you have to bring it to the middle of the screen if you want me to see it first. To then extend this contract. Now, if we all pass this to a vote, all in favor? I see that, 6 hands. Thank you. So it is carried unanimously. Thank you. Donc, we're passing to section 9 on public safety. This is for item 9.1, a provincial program for 2022 for financial assistance request for firefighter training. We go through this on a regular basis. This is basically to keep our firefighters up to standards, and our firefighting department is very proactive in making sure that the different firefighters are brought up to speed, and also asking for subsidies from the government in order to keep our costs down. So this resolution is basically to train 2 firefighters for the Firefighter 1 program, which is the entry level, and 2 firefighters for the extrication program, and 4 firefighters for the water rescue program over the next year. And this, of course, is to respond effectively and safely to emergency situations on its territory. The town must send its request to the Ministry of Public Security through the MRC. So this resolution basically is part of that process. En français, Melissa?
L'item 9.1, c'est une demande d'aide financière selon le programme provincial d'aide à la formation des pompiers. Donc, la Ville souhaite présenter une demande d'aide financière pour la formation des pompiers. Donc, cette année, la formation pour laquelle la Ville soumet au programme, c'est 2 pompiers pour le programme Pompier 1 2 pompiers pour la désincarcération et 4 pompiers pour la formation sauvetage sur plan d'eau. Puis ça sera lieu au cours de la prochaine année, évidemment dans le but de bien répondre et de manière sécuritaire. Donc, on fait la résolution uniquement pour soumettre la demande d'aide financière et enclencher le processus.
Merci, Melissa. So I need a mover and a seconder. I'm going to look more this way. I see Peter Mate in the middle of the screen, seconded by Darren Legault, to approve basically this request for financial assistance for firefighting. And if we pass this to a vote, all in favor of the resolution? All hands are up. Thank you. C'est passé à l'unanimité. Now, passing to section 10 on bylaws, item 10.1. So this is for the adoption of bylaw 747, decreeing the taxation for the 2022 fiscal year. So if you remember, in January, we adopted the draft bylaw. It was available on the town's website. In this bylaw, it basically reiterates what was presented in December with the different the mill rates basically for each different section. And this basically puts it into law, and it enables the town as well to be issuing the tax bills at the end of February, correct? We're starting with basically sending these out, and as per usual, the dates are actually of when the payments are due are included also in this taxation bylaw, if I remember correctly. All right, so I need a mover and a seconder for this adoption. So Benoît Blais, pardon, en français, merci. Je vais reprendre éventuellement.
À l'item 10.1, c'est l'adoption du règlement 747-2022 qui décrète l'imposition des taxes pour l'exercice financier de cette année. Donc, il y a eu un avis de motion à la séance de janvier, également qu'un projet de règlement qui a été déposé. Donc, ce règlement-là établit les taux de taxes qui permet à la ville d'émettre les avis de paiement de taxes. Donc, la résolution vise à adopter le règlement 747.
Merci beaucoup, Melissa. So I need a mover and a seconder for this bylaw. So it is moved by Benoît Blais and seconded by Reid Thompson for the adoption of the bylaw 747, decreeing the taxation for 2022. I need all of you to go to a vote on supporting this resolution, and it is unanimous. Merci, Melissa. Item 10.2 is related. So this is for the adoption of bylaw 748, 2022. This one is on tariffs. So this relates to permit costs. You'll find in there the actual costs, permit costs for example, for parking at Jack Layton for visitors. There's a lot of information also filling your pools. I'm trying to think of other things that might come up, but it's full of very juicy information. And we pass this every early period of the year, and it basically allows us to update those amounts. So this is really for the final adoption on this bylaw, which then becomes in effect. I need a mover and a seconder for this bylaw. En français.
Item 10.2. Il s'agit de l'adoption du règlement 748-2022 sur la tarification. Donc, ça consigne par écrit tout tarif que la ville peut percevoir, soit pour des biens, des services. C'est indiqué là-dedans. C'est un règlement qui se renouvelle, qu'on adopte à chaque année. Donc, allons-y pour l'adoption.
Merci. So I need a mover and a seconder for the tariffs bylaw. Thank you. Reid Thompson is moving, seconded by Darren Legault. All in favor of the resolution for this bylaw? All hands are up, and it is carried unanimously. Thank you. Item 10.3, it is for the adoption of bylaw 749, 2022. This is the Code of Ethics and Good Conduct for the elected municipal officers of Hudson. We again passed the draft of this bylaw on January 10th. It also was made available on the town's website. I had asked at the time the interim town clerk, who was sitting in Melissa Legault's seat, to give us a brief description of what had changed from the last time. So basically every term, if I understand correctly, this bylaw gets readopted. It is the code of ethics of the council. And what had changed since the last was basically an inclusion of notions of non-aggression, I believe. And it's with regards to harmonization that the province has put across the board, and training also that has become mandatory on this item specifically. Philip, if I've missed something, please feel free to jump in. Okay, good. So on this, I need a mover and a seconder. So moved by Peter Mates. Oh, on French, thank you. Keeping in style.
Pour l'item 10.3, c'est l'adoption du règlement 749-2022, qui est le code d'éthique et de déontologie des élus de la ville d'Hudson. Donc, il y a eu un avis de motion et un dépôt du projet à la séance du 10 janvier 2022. Et puis, Madame la mairesse mentionnait que c'est un règlement qui doit être réadopté suivant chaque élection pour chaque terme. Et également, ce qu'on a oublié de mentionner pour les deux autres items d'adoption de règlement, c'est qu'il n'y a pas eu de modification au projet depuis son dépôt. Donc, ça n'a pas été mentionné, mais c'était le cas également pour les deux autres items, donc qui sont adoptés tels qu'ils étaient présentés lors de leur dépôt.
Merci, Melissa. So Melissa added the clarification that for this bylaw and the two previous one, that they were adopted without any modifications since the draft that was presented in January. So that's an important point. Thank you. All right, so mover and a seconder for this. Thank you, Peter Mate and Benoit Blais. And all in favor of this resolution. Thank you. And it is unanimous. All right. Item 10.4, notice of motion and tabling of draft bylaw 750 of 2022, establishing a moratorium on certain planning operations. Moratorium is a temporary freeze on certain urban planning operations. I will need a councillor to give notice of the motion that he would move or cause to be moved at a subsequent session of the council, the adoption of bylaw 750, establishing a moratorium on certain planning operations. Now, the object of this bylaw, and I'm reading, is to temporarily prohibit certain urban planning operations in order to give council and town the opportunity to adopt modifications to the urban planning bylaws. So the councillor who wishes to give notice is?
I can give notice.
Mark Gray wishes to give notice of this motion, and that is it. So there is no vote required on a notice of motion.
Okay. Alors, je vais résumer en français. Donc, c'est un avis de motion et il y a également dépôt du projet de règlement pour Règlement 750-2022 instituant un moratoire sur certaines opérations d'urbanisme. Donc, plus précisément, le but de ce règlement est d'interdire temporairement certaines opérations d'urbanisme afin de laisser le temps au Conseil d'adopter des modifications à ces autres règlements d'urbanisme.
Okay. And I had asked Philip if he would be kind enough to go through en résumé, basically what is contained in this draft.
Okay, merci Madame la mairesse. Thank you, Mrs. Mayor. Je vais y aller dans les deux langues. Alors, Melissa, tu peux prendre un petit recul là, si tu veux. Alors, comme ça a été dit, c'est une mesure temporaire. C'est le règlement 750-2022. C'est un règlement de contrôle intérimaire qui va remplacer, lors de son adoption, la résolution de contrôle intérimaire qui a été adoptée le 6 décembre. So this is a bylaw, as was suggested by the mayor and the clerk, Melissa. This is a bylaw proposal that will replace the interim control resolution that was adopted on December 6th of last year. We will be tabling this. It is proposed at least to table this for final adoption on February 24. Alors, c'est proposé que le règlement devant nous, le 750, soit déposé pour adoption finale le 24 février. Et ça, ce sera une assemblée spéciale. Ça reste à voir, ça va être en personne ou virtuel, mais ça, on verra les consignes du gouvernement. We'll see in the near future whether that'll be a virtual meeting or in person. That'll depend on the sanitary measures in place by the government. So we'll keep you posted on that. Alors, le règlement, c'est la suite de la résolution qui a été adoptée le 6 décembre. Depuis ce temps-là, il y a eu une réflexion et les mesures qu'on va mettre temporairement sont décrites dans le règlement. So again, we adopted an interim control resolution on December 6th after some weeks of reflection. The culmination of that will be this interim control bylaw, which will give the council the opportunities, was said, to reflect further. So it'll be important to remember that what we talk about tonight are temporary measures, but they will replace the resolution that was adopted on December 6th when we bring it up for final adoption. Alors, rappelons-nous là, que le règlement devant nous ce soir va remplacer la résolution du 6 décembre quand ça va être adopté en version finale, présumément le 24 février. Alors, le territoire d'application du règlement. Alors, ça va être dans les zones de protection que vous allez trouver à l'annexe A du présent règlement. Ça se résume brièvement, ça ne change pas grand-chose. On parle toujours des paliers qui sont présents dans le rapport Écoturbe. So the territory of application of this bylaw will be as was presented in the interim control resolution. We're still talking about the 5 tiers of the Eco-to-Herb report. You'll find the map in the annex of this bylaw. Je vous rappelle, le document est disponible en ce moment sur le site web. Vous pouvez regarder pour vous-même. I'll remind you that this document is currently available on the website. You can look it up for yourselves. There's various definitions. Il y a plusieurs définitions. L'élément peut-être le plus important à souligner, ça serait la sixième définition. C'est la marge de déboisement. Alors, quand un lot est adjacent, soit une zone agricole, soit une zone publique, récréative ou de conservation, il doit avoir une marge de recul de déboisement de 5 mètres. So perhaps the most important definition that I'd like to highlight this evening is number 6, the non-deforestation setback. There will be a setback, deforestation setback of 5 meters to all lots adjacent to agricultural zones, recreational zones, conservation, and public zones. Again, the territory of application of the bylaw are the 5 tiers in the Eco-to-Herb report. Please keep that in mind. Je souligne que le territoire d'application demeure les 5 paliers du rapport Eco-to-Herb. Je voudrais garder ça en tête quand on parle du règlement. Pour ce qui est de l'abattage d'arbres, alors, on ne permet pas l'abattage d'arbres dans les paliers, sauf dans les circonstances suivantes. So we will not be allowing tree cutting within the 5 zones, except for the conditions that I'm about to read. So, à la construction d'un bâtiment principal, incluant son allée de protection, son allée d'accès, son allée véhiculaire, lorsque le bâtiment respecte les conditions suivantes, alors son lot il est sur sa totalité fait face soit à une rue publique déjà construite ou une rue destinée à être publique suite à une entente avec la municipalité. So again, you cannot fell trees on lots, but however, we will allow it for the construction of a new main building as long as, and this is the various conditions, one is that the lot be in front of an existing public road or on a road that is expected to be ceded to the town through an agreement. Également, l'exception serait que le lot est actuellement exempt de bâtiment principal et le seul à être appelé principal sur le lot. So there can only be one principal building. We won't be allowing a second one in the sense of tree felling. Sa construction n'entraîne aucun abattage dans la marge de non-déboisement. Again, encore une fois, je vous réfère dans les zones qui sont adjacentes à des zones agricoles, publiques, conservation et récréatif. Alors, on peut, again, you cannot fell a tree within 5 meters of the non-construction zone that I mentioned earlier, those that are adjacent to agricultural zones, public zones, recreational zones, or conservation zones. Une clôture doit être érigée aux alentours du périmètre de non-déboisement, et ça avant qu'on émette le permis et jusqu'à la fin de la construction. So a fence must be erected around the area of non-felling of trees. This has to be done prior to the issuance of the permit being issued, and it must stay in place until the works is completed. On permet également le déboisement pour l'expansion d'un bâtiment principal sous à peu près les mêmes conditions. So again, we'll allow for the expansion of a main building using essentially the same conditions. On va permettre également la construction ou l'agrandissement d'un bâtiment accessoire, un cabanon par exemple. We will allow the construction of an accessory building or its expansion, a shed for instance, mais avec certaines conditions. Alors encore, ne doit pas être dans la zone de non-déboisement, le 5 mètres encore adjacent à la zone agricole, conservation, etc. So again, it must not include the felling of trees within the non-deforestation setback. Again, agricultural zones, recreation zones, conservation zones. Il faut qu'en raison de l'absence d'espace sans arbres sur le terrain pour implanter conformément à la construction. Alors, s'il y a déjà un lieu qui est déboisé sur le lot, on va privilégier que cet espace soit utilisé pour la construction du bâtiment accessoire. If there's already an area that's already been tree felled, we will prioritize that as the area to build the accessory building. Pour un radius aux alentours, le périmètre de construction pour un bâtiment accessoire se limite à 1 mètre. So for the building of an accessory building, we will be limiting the perimeter around that building that can be tree felled to 1 meter. The exception will be swimming pools where we will allow up to 5 meters. Encore une fois, une clôture doit être érigée. Again, a fence must be built around the area. Pour les milieux hydriques, so for bodies of water, dans le littoral puis la rive d'un lac ou d'un cours d'eau, une bande de protection continue à s'appliquer, mais la bande de protection va être augmentée à 15 mètres. Et ça, peu importe l'inclination du talus. So when it comes to bodies of water, shores, lakes, water courses, we will be increasing the area of protection to 15 meters, and that's regardless of the slope of the shore. For wetlands. Alors, pour les milieux humides, on va parler d'une protection des milieux humides. On ne peut pas construire adjacent à un milieu humide. Encore une fois, la bande de protection est de 10 mètres, mais si c'est un lot vacant aujourd'hui, automatiquement, la bande de protection devient 15 mètres. So for wetlands, we don't allow works in the adjacent area around wetlands. The area of protection remains 10 meters, except if it's a vacant lot today, then automatically a 15-meter protection band will apply. There will be certain exceptions. The exceptions will be works where there's already been a CA that's been issued from the Ministry of the Environment and is still in force. Alors, il va y avoir des exceptions, dont s'il y a déjà eu l'émission d'un certificat d'autorisation du ministère de l'Environnement et qui est toujours valide. Il y a également l'exception qui m'attriste, moi, mais bon, Les castors, on permet les MRC de faire les travaux nécessaires pour le bon écoulement des eaux dans les cours d'eau verbalisés. Donc, ils ont le droit de prendre les mesures nécessaires pour contrôler les barrages à castors. So when it comes to when it comes to water courses that are under MRC control, they're allowed to do whatever it takes to ensure that the water runs smoothly. So they do have the right to take measures regarding beavers in their dams. Un point important, an important point, opération cadastrale. So the important point, cadastral operations. Pendant la période que le règlement en question va être en vigueur, aucune opération cadastrale sera permise dans les zones qui sont prévues dans l'annexe A. So an important point, cadastral operations will not be allowed within the protection zones as are indicated in Annex A. Again, we're talking of eco-herb protection areas. Les opérations cadastrales, ça veut dire des subdivisions, des sous-lotissements. Again, cadastral operations means subdividing of lots. Pour ce qui est des rapports qui sont prévus, qui sont nécessaires, si jamais la municipalité demande des preuves pour autoriser certaines exceptions, l'administration peut demander des expertises de professionnels. Quand on parle de déboisement des boisés, on parle des ingénieurs forestiers, on parle des arboriculteurs, on peut demander une expertise. So when it comes to the exceptions, we might require the word of an expert. So when it comes to forestry management, we might require reports either from forestry engineers or an arborist. Pour l'application du présent règlement, on peut également demander des preuves d'un agronome, surtout dans les zones agricoles. We might also require the report of an agronomist, and especially in agricultural zones. The current bylaw does have sanctions if you don't respect its terms. So those who don't respect this bylaw could be subject to a fine of $600 to $2,000 per event. And if you're a corporation or a commercial entity, the fine could be increased from $1,200 to $4,000. However, if the fine is concerning tree felling, the fine will automatically be a minimum of $1,000 and $100 or up to $200 per tree that is felled illegally, to a maximum of $5,000. In areas where there's 1 hectare or more, the fines increase to $5,000 to a maximum of $15,000. Pour ce qui est des clauses pénales du règlement, s'il n'est pas respecté, on parle d'une amende passable minimum entre $100 et $2,000. Et c'est une personne morale, on parle d'un minimum de $1,200 jusqu'à un maximum de $4,000. Si l'infraction, par contre, réfère à l'abattage d'un arbre, l'infraction est automatiquement sera assujettie à une clause pénale de $1,000 ainsi qu'un minimum de $100 jusqu'à $200 par arbre, jusqu'à un maximum, jusqu'à concurrence de $5,000. Par contre, si on parle d'un lot qui a une superficie de plus d'1 hectare, ou 1 hectare ou plus plutôt, la peine minimale est de $5,000 allant jusqu'à $15,000. Ça résume le règlement. This summarizes the bylaw. Je vous invite à y aller au site web et regarder pour vous-même le règlement et voir si vous avez des commentaires. C'est certain, on est toujours ouvert à vous entendre. Et on propose au Conseil d'aller avec une adoption finale le 24 février. Et comme la mairesse a mentionné au début de la réunion aujourd'hui, on propose une séance d'information le 21 février qui sera soit en personne ou potentiellement virtuelle, dépendant des consignes sanitaires qui seront en vigueur. So again, this bylaw, this is a summary of the current bylaw. I invite you all to go see it for yourselves. It's available on the website. Please, if you have any comments, by all means, send them in. We're happy to receive them. The final adoption we propose the council look at final adoption on the 24th of February. And before that, there will be an information meeting on the 21st of February. We will see whether that'll be virtual or in person. That'll depend on the sanitary measures that are in place at the time. But regardless, pencil it in if it interests you. Public consultation on this, or information session rather, on the 21st of February, and a final adoption on February 24. So if you have any further questions tonight, there's always the opportunity. Otherwise, the 21st, we're looking forward to hearing from you. Alors, si vous avez d'autres questions, il y aura l'opportunité ce soir, mais encore une fois, le 21 février, on vous attend en grand nombre.
Thank you, Philip. Very complete, very helpful. So this brings us to the second question period, and I've opened my side panel of all the people, so I hope there weren't any hands that were raised the first time around. So if there are any questions, this would be the time to raise your hand. Not seeing any hands. Oh, June, thank God, June. I thought maybe there was something wrong with our Zoom link. All right, June, please go ahead, ask your question.
Okay, so I'm just getting back to the summary that was just reported to us by Philip Toon. Being in a flood zone, after the floods, there were many trees on my property that weren't faring very well. And so does that include, like, for instance, diseased trees or trees like that just don't make it because their roots are too wet?
I believe that there are provisions still in this bylaw, this interim bylaw, that has provisions for sick trees or trees that are broken, that are dead, that need to be removed. So any health related trees.
Yeah, especially like when my house was in danger. So it was an urgent thing that I needed to cut the old maple tree before it fell on my house. So
I think that will always be there in the law, where, of course, that type of provision is always there. We want to be looking after your trees.
Okay, and then one other question, getting back to the summary that Mark was giving from his group. I thought I heard something about a 30-meter buffer zone. Did I misunderstand something, or was that?
It was the recommendations of the group. There were several recommendations. Those will be made available online. I mean, if you'd like Mark to describe a little bit more to that.
Yeah, I would be interested in that, because that was what happened back in December when Mayor Nichols was in and the town revolted.
Yes.
And for me, I wasn't even going to be able to mow my lawn in my backyard. So are we still talking about the same type of buffer zone?
So I'll do a brief intro, Mark, but the discussion was around making the buffers as wide as possible in order to keep those corridors functioning. And there was certainly discussion around the table to make sure that existing grandfathered in uses could continue, so that it wouldn't impact the way, life as we know it. But I'll let Mark continue, because what came out of that was really interesting with regards to forests, and that forests need wider buffer zones even. So how can we live within knowing that, and how do we restore within those buffer zones? So Mark, go ahead.
Hi, June. I mean, buffer zones really should be a minimum of 30 meters to have no disturbance for a functional wetland buffer zone as a minimum. But at the same time, I think our aim is to keep within the urban area anyways, 10 meters as a more strict, the bylaw already exists now for that reason, but to push that 10-meter buffer zone as a minimum, and to introduce the 30-meter buffer zone, but just as a restricted usage. So like, fertilizers and other disturbances, but not limitations like the previous 30-meter buffer that everybody remembers from the past, which was problematic for your, buildings and, other structures and homes and things like that. So that's not part of this 30-meter buffer, but the idea that we need to protect these corridors, wetland corridors, and then forested corridors where there is no water course, but critters and plants and seeds and things need to move through. It's all part of resilience, and adapting to climate change. So a 60-meter wide corridor in a forested area is a minimum recommendation as well. So does that answer your question, June?
It does, but it also raises up other concerns. Like, I mean, in the back of my property, it's always been quite on the wild side because my property is a long property from Main Road down to the creek that passes just on Shipman's Point. There's a creek that goes under the road. I don't know if people recall it, but anyway, there is a creek that comes from the farm fields across the road on its way to the Ottawa River or Lake of Two Mountains. And my property borders on that creek at the back. So when the floods come, the past 2 floods, my whole entire property was flooded. But in a normal situation, part of it floods. So it's always remained kind of on the wild side. But if I now have to, is it from the bed of the creek or is it from where the high water comes? How do you measure 30 meter?
Yeah. The definition, besides if you may be affected by the ZIS, but other than that, historically, the high water mark is the definition of the wetland. One of the recommendations as well is you would need a biologist to do there's several options, but the first is what type of plant life grows adjacent to a wetland, that would demark the wetland limit. Plus also you can go farther than that and look at the soil and all the little microbes and critters and things in soil is a more definitive way of defining a wetland as well. So those are site characterizations, are recommendations also made so that a proper demarcation of a wetland can be sorted out.
Okay, and so, this is causing me to have more concern about my own property here, depending on how the bylaw or what restrictions will be put in place. But let's take another example, for instance, like the Willow, where the lawn is kept mowed right down to the bank of the water. Other properties on Main Road, many people have lawns, and I know there's provincial laws where you're not supposed to mow all the way to the beach, but there are a lot of people that do. And I see it with many of my clients where if that 30-meter line was put in place, a lot of people would have to be letting their lawns grow wild. Is that what you're saying?
Nope. The 10-meter bylaw that exists for non-intervention from a wetland would be what we want to enforce. There are several areas in town, certainly along the Vivary, where people are cutting their lawns right up to the edge of the creek, and we want to not, or the recommendation is to not have that happen anymore, so that the 10 meters, which already exists, is honored. And the 30-meter is more for tree cutting, which we already have bylaws for that, but fertilizer use and the understanding for residents that these areas are important and make a difference for the protection of wetlands within the town. So the 30-meter part is part education, minor restriction, but the 10 meters is really what we're hoping to enforce and rehabilitate where needed, so that these corridors are more functional is the aim.
Okay, well, I'm just a bit concerned that things are going to turn a little bit on the wild side. And I was just wondering if maybe there's allowances for properties that already, exist, like a grandfather clause where, if these people have mowed their lawn up to a certain point, that they could continue to do that. I mean, that doesn't apply in my case, but, if you were a property owner and you had a nice, walk down to your beach and all of a sudden you had to go through like all these wild grasses and things, it wouldn't be, aesthetically as nice. And would there really be that much wildlife that would come and live in those places?
I think you're right. Getting back to the wild side is the goal. So you're right on it there. But also education is part of it, getting people to understand that those buffers are critical for slowing down and cleaning, chemicals and sediment and slowing down water from getting into. This is all part of problems that we regularly see, with rapid moving water in urban landscapes and creating bigger flood issues. There's a multitude of reasons why these types of buffers are important, and this is a minimum buffer that already exists. So we're not really changing a lot right here, except for bolstering the notion of these corridors and a very minimum buffer zone. So rewilding, in a sense, is the approach.
And if I may sort of interject also, June, this covers, that 37% of the tiers 1 through 5 that were identified in the Echo to Herb report that was based, as you know, on also the work of other biologists before them, where main corridors of biodiversity were identified. So it's not for the whole territory of Hudson. It is really specific to those key areas. And if you look on that map, which is in the annex to that draft bylaw, you'll see that it's not necessarily the entire line of the river. It is not necessary all of the territory, but really to, as Mark says, to bolster those key corridors that we've identified as being the heart of the biodiversity of our territory.
Okay. Well, I just think it's important for people to understand because I'm sitting here tonight hearing it and trying to decipher what it all means for my particular case. And I can foresee like a lot of people getting really anxious about a revisit to that whole concept if it's not properly explained.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I agree with you. And that's exactly why we're doing that second presentation on the 21st. And also to remember that these are the recommendations of this working group. And of course, we took those in, we looked at them. There was some reaction even around the table on our part, because some of us have lived through that 526.8 situation. And we remember we had to answer an awful lot of emails. And also, I think that there's better grandfathered in provisions in this case. And if you'll notice in the draft interim controls bylaw that we were just speaking about, or that Philip presented earlier, it is for 15 meters. So we've already cut that back by half, and it's really adding an extra 5 meters to what already exists. And I think that Mark and the group have interesting points to make, which is, how do we sensitize and how do we inform and basically educate ourselves to how to better live within those corridors of biodiversity?
Okay, well, thank you. I'll let the stage to someone else.
All right, thanks, June. I see that Daniel Rodrigue has his hand up. Vous êtes le prochain. Monsieur Rodrigue?
Oui, bonjour, ça va bien?
Oui, et vous?
Oui, je voudrais juste avoir une clarification. Lors d'une construction neuve et l'implantation d'une résidence, quelle va être la limite autorisée? Vous parlez de mettre une clôture de protection des arbres et tout ça, je comprends très bien le but et je crois que c'est bien. Est-ce que vous pouvez me clarifier quelle est la distance que vous allez autoriser ou qu'on va devoir mettre cette clôture au pourtour de l'excavation, au pourtour de l'implantation, je devrais dire, de la résidence? Alors, si on implante exactement la superficie de la résidence, à quelle distance est-ce qu'on va devoir mettre cette clôture?
Moi, j'ai compris, mais je vais laisser aussi à Philippe de me confirmer, mais j'ai compris que la première clôture, en fait, appartient à la zone de non-deforestation en anglais, non-déboisement, je pense, en français, qui est seulement quand on est contigu à une zone agricole, une zone récréation, zone conservation, et il y en avait une quatrième, publique, je pense. Tout ça pour dire que c'est vraiment pour s'assurer qu'on a des marges. Donc, la clôture est là, c'est une clôture pour la période des travaux, qui est là pour protéger ces milieux naturels, cette bande naturelle. Ensuite, on parle d'une coupe d'arbres qui est permise, un déboisement, si on veut, au périmètre de piscine et au périmètre de bâtiments accessoires. Donc, bâtiments accessoires, on a parlé de 1 mètre et autour d'une piscine, on a parlé de 5 mètres. Donc, Philippe, did I miss something? Je pense qu'il y a peut-être aussi autour d'une maison, mais il n'y a pas besoin de clôture comme telle.
Autour d'une nouvelle construction, on parle toujours de 5 mètres.
OK.
Mais pas dans le périmètre de non-déboisement qui est de 5 mètres adjacent à des zones agricoles, de conservation, etc. Et encore une fois, il faut se rappeler pour les bâtiments accessoires, s'il y a déjà un coin déboisé, on va les privilégier.
OK, non, ça va, parce que techniquement, avec le gouvernement et la sécurité des gens, il y a un minimum de 2 mètres qu'il faut creuser de plus que la superficie de la résidence. Et naturellement, l'équipement nécessaire a besoin de 4 mètres. Alors, vous dites 5 mètres, j'espère qu'on va pouvoir travailler avec les 5 mètres, mais techniquement, ça prend 4 mètres pour l'excavateur et 2 mètres de sécurité qui est requis par la sécurité, là, la CSST. Alors, normalement, on devrait parler de 6 mètres, mais on n'est pas loin. Alors, c'est bien, je voulais juste clarifier parce que c'est sûr qu'il faut travailler. Maintenant, qu'est-ce qui va se passer? Parce que si on veut contrôler ça, et c'est vraiment bien de penser de le contrôler, mais naturellement, lorsqu'on fait l'excavation de quelques résidences qu'il s'agit et qu'on excave un minimum normalement au moins de 5 ou 6 pieds de profond, c'est sûr que le matériel d'excavation doit sortir et doit être déposé en quelque part. Alors, est-ce qu'on peut penser que l'inspecteur va quand même user de jugement et de penser que c'est sûr qu'on ne peut pas demander aux citoyens et aux futurs propriétaires de retirer cette excavation-là, de l'entreposer. Il n'y a pas nulle part d'entreposer. De toute façon, tous les sites d'enfouissement sont presque fermés. Alors, c'est sûr que le matériel doit être retiré, déposé sur le terrain. Et naturellement, oui, faire attention aux arbres, mais il faut qu'il soit déposé. Il faut qu'il soit déposé à l'extérieur. Si on dit 5 mètres, du 5 mètres. Alors, ça va être compris, j'imagine, que cette excavation-là ne peut pas être retirée de l'endroit de la construction.
Attends, à ce qu'il y ait quand même, c'est intéressant comme point, mais je m'attends à ce qu'il y ait quand même une certaine partie du sol qui serait à sortir du site, étant donné que vous le remplacez par une fondation, par un sous-sol habité. Par contre, à savoir s'il y aurait, j'imagine que vous avez des zones qui vont rester sur votre terrain. Si jamais vous aviez l'intention d'y mettre une piscine, par exemple, ça pourrait être dans cette zone-là. Mais pour le reste, moi, je prends votre commentaire comme étant intéressant, puis je pense que ça vaut la peine qu'on en discute. Mais je sais qu'il y a d'autres municipalités qui ont des restrictions qui sont encore plus fortes que les nôtres. Autrement, il faudrait prévoir sortir le sol. Déjà, il y a une partie qui est à sortir, ça c'est sûr et certain.
Oui, ça va. Oui, alors, c'est ça, je voulais juste faire part un peu du commentaire parce que de le retirer, s'il y avait des endroits où on peut le retirer et l'amener, ça serait intéressant, ça serait très coûteux, mais en plus de ça, c'est qu'on n'a plus d'endroit dans le secteur. Je veux dire, tout le monde cherche où aller avec l'extra d'excavation. Alors, merci de votre réponse. Ça clarifie un peu le point d'interrogation que j'avais lors d'une construction neuve.
D'accord. Merci beaucoup. C'est gentil.
Merci. Bonne soirée.
Are there any other questions? I don't see any more hands. Helen Kurganski. Helen, do you want to ask your question?
I'll unmute myself. Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes, I can.
Okay, well, congratulations for moving forward on this conservation plan. I just was wondering if you were planning to use the study Nature Hudson had commissioned by Terra Humana an ecological characterization of the sandy beach and all the wildlife that was there and plant life. Do you plan to use reports like that and even commission other biological reports to help you in the advancing in your planning?
So this has been brought to our attention several times, and it's not possible for the town to be using studies that have been produced without the authorization of the owner. It's a private property. In case of Terra Humana, it's very interesting in terms of information, but we can't be basing future plans or bylaws on this. We would need the accord of the owner to use that. With regards to how we will continue to keep our characterization up to date, what has been discussed and came through certainly the conservation working group is that we find a way that we ask basically every time that there is a characterization that is done for a project or with a private lot owner that they accept to cede the findings of that study to the town so that we can continually improve and update our data.
So the company Terra Humana is recognized as a serious biological a company that uses scientific data and scientific research methods. Is there a way to build from that and go forward so that it would help in the safeguard of the
I certainly don't, I don't disagree that they're probably very capable and very strong professionals. The issue is more that this data was collected without the consent of the private landowner.
Thank you. So it would be up to Nature Hudson to get an agreement to publish it with the owner.
If the owner would be, yes, if they would be favorable to that information being shared with the town, then I would think that we could use it. Philip, you're allowed to nod or disapprove. Yes, okay, good. I haven't said, j'ai pas dit de bêtises. So yes, Helen, that would be the trick, right? If the private owner agrees to the information that is contained and how it was obtained, then it can be then passed to a third party, but they have to agree to it.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions? I see there are 40 people in attendance. Being very quiet. Maybe that's the trick, Philip. We should do multiple public presentation every month. Yes, Marcus, your hand.
Yeah, just a thought popped into my head there with June Penny's comments that I'm sure June could plant a very beautiful buffer zone anywhere throughout the town, because I know there's a whole variety of plant life that would constitute and create a great buffer zone. So I'm sure she could become an expert in that.
And corridors. We want corridors
yeah.
in the urban territory. No, I agree. That would be great. All right. Well, if I don't see another hand raised, I guess we will call the end of the meeting. Let's see if I can come back to my notes. I think it's as simple as basically I need a proposer and a seconder. So for the adjournment of the meeting, right, I need a mover and a seconder for closing of the meeting. Oui, Benoit, tu proposes and Reed seconds. So thank you everyone for being present. The meeting closes at 9:17 p.m.
We'll need a vote.
Oh, thank you. All in favor? And it is unanimous, Melissa. Merci, and we will see you on the 21st of February. Thank you all.